What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video, I'm going to be showcasing what I think is the best all-around build in Destiny 2. Now, I am sure you're no stranger to this build, as it was very popular amongst YouTubers with the launch of Final Shape. I'm of course talking about the Getaway Artist Bleakwatcher build on Prismatic Warlock. And let me tell you, this build is no joke. I beat the Europa Battleground GM solo on my first try with this build. It combines exceptional survivability with insane ad control and many damage over time effects. I call it the best all-around build because it really does not have any weaknesses to speak of. The strongest build in the game is undoubtedly Synthesept Consecration Titan. It can clear entire rooms of enemies and take out Grandmaster champions in one slam, and bosses in just a few slams. Every GM speedrun since the Final Shape has just been Consecration Titans obliterating everything. But that build even has weaknesses, namely having to play hyper aggressive because if the train stops rolling, then you are in trouble. But what the Getaway Artist build lacks in total offensive firepower, it makes up for in ease of use and safety. Seriously, my solo Europa Battleground GM I played quite sloppy in the boss room, but I still beat it. Playing that reckless and getting a solo GM clear would have been unheard of before Prismatic dropped. But this build is just so forgiving, and that's why it is a build that I will be taking into the new Vespers Host dungeon on day 1 on contest mode. And in this video, I will detail what makes this build so excellent and how it will synergize with the artifact mods this season to make it exceptionally strong. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Like I said, this build centers around the Exotic Gauntlet's Getaway Artist. They state, convert your Arc Grenade into an Arc Soul and become amplified. The Arc Soul functions as an autonomous turret. So this little Arc Soul helps deal chip damage while also making you amplified. Last season, this was great as we could use it for galvanic armor. But this season, being amplified is also helpful, which I will get to. But first, we have to look at our aspects. The first one is Bleakwatcher. So when we consume our grenade to make us amplified and get our arc turret, we also spawn a Bleakwatcher turret. This is great as it can control ads for us while we deal with other things. It also slows, so it's very effective on overload champions, and then the slow can stack up into a freeze so it can also deal with unstoppables. So we have huge champion utility in that respect. The next aspect we run is Devour. I don't need to say much about Devour, but basically an ability kill will give us Devour, which gives us our health back on kill and gives us big chunks of grenade energy. This means we can keep spamming our Bleakwatcher turrets if we're slaying out because we'll keep refreshing our grenade thanks to the grenade returns from Devour. This is obviously very helpful as more turrets means more passive chip damage. Plus we have the Arc Soul doing damage, and if it gets a kill then this too counts as an ability kill which procs Devour. Next, we run Arcane Needle melees. These give us 3 melee charges and are a great ranged melee option. They also unravel targets, which is another form of passive damage. So now we have Unravel dealing small amounts of damage to single targets or groups of ads, Bleakwatchers adding in chip damage and freezing things occasionally, which deals even more damage, and then our Arc Souls. But it gets so much better when we move to the fragments. Before that though, I just want to say you can run Healing Rift or Phoenix Dive for more survivability, but personally, I like Healing Rift as it allows you to post up and deal with enemies you would have to hide from in certain situations. So for the day 1 dungeon, that's what I'll be running. So the first fragment I like is Facet of Courage. It gives +10 to Discipline and states your Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with Darkness debuffs. Well, your Bleakwatcher is constantly applying slow to enemies, so this means your Arc Soul will always be dealing 10% extra damage. And I know you want to be consuming your grenade more often than not, but you could also chuck out your Storm Grenade and get a bit of a damage bump there as well. And this also works with your super. Now, I normally like to run this with Song of Flame because Song of Flame just has amazing utility, but if you run Nova Bomb, then this is an easy way to make it deal 10% more damage. So all around, it's just an amazing fragment. It will even buff the Void part of your Transcendence Grenade. And this also works with Unravel from your melee, not just a slow from Bleakwatcher. Any Darkness debuff can proc this. So next we have Facet of Devotion. Defeating targets afflicted with standard stasis debuffs grants bonus light transcendence energy. Because Bleakwatcher is always dealing passive damage to enemies, your Darkness Transcendence actually fills up pretty quickly. Plus Unravel helps with this a lot as well. So as you defeat those enemies afflicted by those debuffs, you will be getting chunks of light energy. This just helps fill your Transcendence meter quicker, and if I have learned anything from playing with Prismatic for the last 4 months, it's that if you can abuse Transcendence and get it often, you'll be a force to be reckoned with. And this build gets Transcendence quicker and easier than basically every build in the game. Next we have Facet of Dawn. If we are in a dungeon, you can almost guarantee there are going to be at least 2 boss fights, and having an extra 25% damage available to you is extremely helpful, especially on day 1 when contest mode will be active and you only get so many phases to kill the bosses. So this is a must run in my opinion. And outside of the dungeon, having Radiant gives you anti-barrier rounds, which means this build can handle all 3 champion types with ease. Bleak Watchers make a joke of overloads and unstops, and then Arcane Needle can give you Radiant from any distance to deal with a barrier champ. The Radiant does last for only 5 seconds, but with 3 charges, you can keep proccing it over and over. And then you can pop Song of Flame to have Radiant the whole time you have your super active, and it refreshes your charges when you come out of super. And Transcendence gives you extremely quick ability regen. So you can pop that for damage as well, so you always have a melee to chuck, plus a 5% weapon damage bonus when Transcendence is active. Next, we have Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. This is a great fragment to run for even more ability uptime. If you ever happen to lose Devour and you need to get the engine rolling again, you can just slay out on ads to get an ability back quickly to reproc Devour and get to spamming abilities again. This one is the most optional out of all of them, though I love to run it. You may think you would want to run Facet of Dominance because this allows your Void Transcendence Grenade to apply Weaken, but this season that is not needed thanks to the artifact, which I will touch on in a bit. So I definitely think you should just go with Facet of Balance. And the last fragment we want is Facet of Sacrifice. While you have an Arc, Solar, or Void buff, Ability Final Blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy, plus 10 to Discipline. I didn't really mention it, but obviously you want to try to shoot for 100 Discipline with this build, and then 100 Resilience for the damage resistance. So this gives us more Discipline, which is great. And we always have a light buff because we usually always have Amplified and Devour, and we quite often have a Radiant as well. It requires ability final blows to get, but your Arc Souls or Bleak Watchers will often get a random final blow here and there, so you take advantage of this more often than you think. When all these fragments are combined, you get absurd ability cooldowns and insanely high uptime on Transcendence. Like I said, I know many creators made videos on this, as I saw it in my comment sections a lot when Final Shape launched. I didn't really watch any, so I don't know what fragments they were running, but after playing with Prismatic extensively since June, I can very confidently say that this is the best setup that you can run with this build. It's absurdly powerful. I used this build on the Battleground GM like I mentioned and beat it first try, and I also used it in Exodus Crash. If you ever just want to shut your brain off and not have to go full tryhard to beat the hardest content in the game, then this is the build you should pick. And as I mentioned, it's getting even stronger this season. Stasis is heavily featured on the artifact, and the Bleak Watcher will be doing a lot of work for us. So let me go through what artifact perks I will be running with this build. Obviously you can switch things out as needed, but here are the ones that I like. Trace Evidence. Rapid precision hits or rapid final blows on targets affected by Jolt or Blind will generate Ionic Traces. Picking up an Ionic Trace grants an armor charge. So Ionic Traces give us big ability energy returns, and then when boosted from a potion will also grant us armor charge. That is exceptionally strong, and will proc Jolt by using a Volt Shot weapon. For more survivability, you can go with Wind Chill, where Rapid Stasis precision hits grant you Frost Armor. This also works with the new seasonal weapons. This isn't my first choice, but I did want to mention it. Killing Breeze grants you bonus mobility from rapid final blows, something you will do quite often. Fell the Revenant may be good if the dungeon has Scorn in it, and this just flat out increases weapon damage against Scorn. Debilitating Wave could be great if you're running Nova Bomb, as a finisher will weaken nearby enemies. Hail the Storm allows your stasis shatters on frozen targets to deal increased damage, just making your Bleak Watchers that much more effective. Brain Freeze will be strong with the Bleak Watcher. Frozen combatants become surrounded with a chilling fog, which slows combatants that aren't already. And then seasonal weapons deal more damage to frozen combatants, so that one pairs great with this build. And then we have Conductive Cosmic Crystal, which is a lot like Facet of Courage. Basically, your Arc and Void abilities as well as seasonal weapons do bonus damage to targets that are afflicted by a stasis debuff. And with Bleak Watchers, pretty much everything will be afflicted with a stasis debuff. So this will buff your Arc Soul damage, your Storm Grenade, and likely your Transcendence Grenade as well. And hell, even Nova Bomb most likely. Facet of Courage does, so there's no reason to think that this one won't. And then the Potion Boost just makes the damage even more. And I know you can't run 3 last column perks, but the last one also has nice synergy depending on the loadout. Kinetic Impacts. Sustained damage with a power grenade launcher causes the combatant to emit a shockwave that damages nearby combatants. This shockwave can stun unstoppables. So if it is ad clear heavy, run brain freeze, and if it's a damage phase and you have a heavy GL on, then run kinetic impacts. So that brings me to my loadout selection. I waited because I wanted to focus on my build synergy first, but this artifact has some crazy mods. So first is concussive reload. Using a GL to damage a boss or a champion or break a combatant shield weakens them. And the boosted version automatically reloads stowed weapons. So this is why we really don't need Facet of Dominance, because we can just easily apply weaken with a grenade launcher. Witherhoard and Anarchy will be great for this, but any GL will do. Lost Signal has damage over time, Mountaintop can deal great damage with Impulse Amplifier and Frenzy or Vorpal Weapon, and a Kinetic Reloader, and then there's the artifact perk Rapid Impacts. Dealing damage with a grenade launcher temporarily increases the reload speed of grenade launchers. So Mountaintop could actually be really strong for boss damage. Then we have Overload Breach Grenade Launcher as well. Damaging a combatant with primary or special ammo GL disrupts combatants, stunning them, delaying ability regeneration, and lowering combatant damage output. Strong against overload champions, and these weapons will always be overcharged when this modifier is active. So a lot of people only associate these with stunning overloads, but don't get it twisted. This will also work on other enemies. So if a boss hits really hard, like Heffen did in Warlord's Ruin, then this will make the boss hit less hard, helping your team survive. On top of this, someone in your fire team could also run a slice weapon and slice the boss to make it hit even less hard, and these effects should stack. This honestly could be crucial in the day 1 contest mode. So with all that said, here are some of the weapons that I'm taking into the day 1 dungeon. So Exderis could be the star of Revenant. It is a special GL, so it will work with Overload GL and presumably be able to weaken like all the other grenade launchers. So yeah, this thing's going to be awesome. You'll be able to spawn Loyal Moths more frequently because of the buff that it's getting in Revenant. And then this blinds enemies, so that will really help you and your fire team with staying alive and just ad control and whatever else. So yeah, this thing, it's also getting a 33% buff, so it's going to have really good ad clear. And then we've got the Call. I'm looking at Lead from Gold 1 for all because these are, or I guess they just have received a reserves nerf. So Lead from Gold will be really nice because when you pick up heavy, this will also give this ammo. So yeah, double special will still be alive if you're running stuff like this because these both have really good ammo reserves. Or, as I mentioned, Slice could be really good for survivability as well. So you could run a Slice roll if you wanted. And then Sniper Rifles just got a buff. So Reconstruction Vorpal Succession could be great. Or Chill Clip Chaos Reshaped is also very, very strong. This thing hits like a truck. They're not buffed against bosses, but if there's some encounters where there's just a bunch of majors or whatever, then snipers will be really good. Lost Signal for damage over time. Autoloading Vorpal. You could also do autoloading 1 for all if you're using it for ad clear. The Mountaintop with Impulse Amplifier and Vorpal Weapon, like I mentioned. Another Slice roll, which is really nice. Because yeah, it can just apply a darkness debuff, and I talked about all the reasons why darkness debuffs are good. Choir of 1 is another utility weapon. It did get a reserves nerf, but still very, very strong. Buried Bloodline, an easy way to get Devour. I don't really need it with this build, but it's going to be really good next season, and it can apply Weaken if you're shooting enemies while you have Devour. So just like the grenade launchers can apply Weaken, so can Buried Bloodline. Sunshot is always good for mass ad clear, so it could be good in the day 1 dungeon. And then just a couple more rocket sidearms because they're just so damn good. 1 Heal Clip Incandescent for staying alive, 1 with Volt Shot, and again Lead from Gold for just taking out a mass amount of enemies. And then Edge Transit with Envious and Bait and Switch is still one of the GOATs, though if there is a God roll from the new season, then it can take advantage of those Dark Ether Reaper origin traits, so that could be good. If I need ad clear, I've got a few machine guns lined up ready to go. Dragon's Breath, one of the best weapons in the game and has really good damage over time. And it pairs really nicely with Song of Flame. And again, I don't know if I'm going to run Nova Bomb or Song of Flame. If it's more ad clear, it's going to be Song of Flame. If we need high quick damage, then it's going to be Cataclysm Nova Bomb. So yeah, those are the weapons that I pretty much have locked and loaded, ready to go for the day 1 dungeon. Again, they will allow you to run double special because a lot of these are really good on ammo. And Exderis is going to be absolutely wrecking this season. So that is it for my weapon loadout suggestions. Again, run whatever weapons you like and feel comfortable with, but I think these weapons are going to absolutely shine in a day 1 dungeon scenario. But yeah, this build is great in all manner of content. From Onslaught to Free Roam Patrol to Master Lost Sectors to solo GMs, it truly can do it all. And that is going to do it for what I think is the best all-around build in Destiny. Again, after testing out numerous builds over the last few months, I just don't see one that has as much utility and as few weaknesses as this build has. It pretty much does it all. I'm very much looking forward to getting in the new dungeon and clearing it on contest mode. And for my solo flawless, this is likely the build that I will be attempting to clear it with. Anyways, if you're still here, then thanks so much for watching to the end. Do me a solid and leave a like if you found the video helpful, and subscribe for more awesome Destiny 2 content. I'll be making a solo flawless guide as soon as I can, so you don't want to miss that. Thanks for watching, and take care.